Andy, thanks very much for inviting us here to the offices of JLL in London. E-commerce has obviously been one of the reasons for the growth of logistics. E-commerce, obviously, the UK is ahead of mainland Europe. How do you see that developing at the moment in the UK and especially London?
The British Property Federation have estimated that for every new home to be provided in London, an additional 40 square feet of logistics space needs to be provided. Now, if you translate that amount of square footage versus the number of homes that need to be provided as in set out in the draft London plan, which is 66,000 new homes per annum until 2040, that calculation is 2.5 million square feet of logistics space to be provided year on year until 2040. Such is the demand on that e-commerce last mile logistics market, which I find quite staggering.
So that particular trend, Andy, how do you think that's going to influence the real estate provision, particularly in a city like London?
So I think, on the outer edges, in those sort of urban logistics markets, you're going to have some fulfilment centres, which will gather the goods from the ports and from the airports into those centres, and then they've got to be brought into the city. Now that has its challenges insofar that we've got ultra low emission zones, we've got need for more electric vehicles, we've got lots of congestion on the roads, we've got timing to bring heavy vehicles into the city, so that all needs to be juggled. And so what we are finding, some of the e-tailers and e-commerce operators are trying to be smart now. So they are looking at having operations in basement car parks, redundant basement car parks, in redundant office space, in redundant railway sidings. And they're trying to find opportunities to get their goods into the city centre easily and without fuss. So there's a whole raft of different thought processes going. Together with that, on those outer fringes, there's a massive view to actually try and intensify sites. So we are now looking at some of those formats I talked about earlier in Singapore, but trying to bring them in as close as we possibly can into the city centre, so that in particular those multi-level buildings, which are cargo lift service buildings, they are critical to actually have those goods much closer to the city centre.
So Andy, you mentioned there London obviously and the increased provision that's going to be necessary. Are you already seeing a number of developments in the market at the moment? And I suppose are you also seeing those trends beginning to influence the real estate provision?
Very much so. At this moment in time, nothing is being built, but there are at least 20 schemes being considered in what I would call inner London. They are a mix of multi-storey to multi-level or flatted factory, where there's quite a number of those, which are the ones which are serviced by cargo lifts, together with co-location space. And the co-location space is where residential or retail is sitting either alongside a logistics provision or above. Alongside that, we've also got consolidation centres, where on the fringes of the city there are logistics buildings which are servicing either shopping centres or large office buildings, together with basement car parks, redundant offices, all being considered for some form of e-commerce provision. We are seeing so much activity in this market that we at JLL have just formed our new City Logistics Group, which is a combination of pure agency advice, research, sustainability, planning and capital market / investment advice. We see there is sufficient work out there to have a dedicated team. I think it's worth just stating that the types of buildings I've been describing are not only going to be utilised by the e-commerce and logistics market. There's a whole plethora of uses that will take this space, which will be servicing this growing populace in London and indeed other cities.
it's going to be very interesting to see how some of these trends are going to play out in the market. Thanks very much for sharing your views with us today, Andy. Thank you.
Pleasure.